Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Daphna Lemish. I'm the interim dean of the School of Communication Information, and it's my honor and joy to welcome you to the special event welcoming Roxane Gay as the new Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair in Media, Culture, and Feminist Studies. We are honored today to have with us President Jonathan Holloway of Rutgers and Chancellor Provost Francine Conway over there, and of course the three guests, Roxane Gay, Gloria Steinem, Jamia Wilson with us, many colleagues in the audience, students, donors who made this possible, and of course members of the community at large. Welcome everyone. The Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair in Feminist Studies and Media, Culture, and Feminist Studies is a collaboration between three bodies at the university. It's the School of Communication Information, which I represent here today. It is a Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies, which is in the School of Arts and Sciences. And I believe Rebecca Wolkovich, who is the Dean of Humanities in that school, is here with us, as well as the chair of the department, Ethel Brooks. And then the third partner is the Institute of Women's Leadership, and Rebecca Mark is here with us, as well as, who is the director of the Institute, as well as Lisa Hetfield, who is the associate director and director of development. And Lisa has played a very important key role over the years in making this endowment become a true thing. So this is also an opportunity for me to thank Lisa Hetfield and Emily Heron and Lindsay Stanton for organizing this event. So thank you very much. In the audience, we also have many of the donors and supporters. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. We are full of gratitude that you made this happen. So this true feminist project of collaboration between three units across divides, across interest, across expertise, really proves to us what collaboration can do to create this unique opportunity of bringing every 3 years a leading prominent feminist scholar or activist or creators or all of the above mixed in one person to Rutgers. This really, truly takes a village. So we're really, really grateful and excited about this opportunity. To open this event and present our speakers, it is my honor to present you President Jonathan Holloway. And Jonathan Holloway joined us as the 21st president of Rutgers University in 2020 after being the provost at Northwestern University, and before that having a brilliant career as a US history professor at Yale University. We here at Rutgers know him for leading significant changes towards his strategic goals of academic excellence, institutional clarity, and creating beloved community with high priority on social justice issues. His goals are known in an easy way to remember as the ABC mission for Rutgers. A stands for access to academic excellence. There's going to be a test on the way out, so memorize. B, beloved community, and C, common good. I can't think of a better alignment with the goals of the Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair, a position contributing to academic excellence of our campus, fostering a community where feminist values of equality and social justice dominate the way we value each member of our community, and devoted to making a real difference in the world for the common good. I therefore cannot think of a better person to introduce our speakers in this event than President Jonathan Holloway. Please.
Thank you and good afternoon. It is exciting for me to be here for many different reasons. One, I've never been in this room with more than 5 people in it. That was my first year on campus during the pandemic, so this is just wonderful. Thank you for that introduction, Dean Lemish. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here for more than the 5 people issue, just for, well, the 3 people issue, off to my left and to your right. I am certainly here as the president, but honestly, to tell the truth, I'm here as a fan. I can't tell you, I just noticed, these comments start with a lot of I can't tell you. What I am telling you, frankly, I'm excited. I was so excited when I learned that we were going to have Roxane Gay fill the appointment as the Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair in Media, Culture, and Feminist Studies at Rutgers. This is not in my script, but I'm going to tell you the truth. When I heard that this happened, my literal reaction was, whoa. Just full stop. Whoa. So it is with great pride that we have Roxane Gay with us today and for the next handful of years. It is great pride that Rutgers can claim to be the home of this distinguished chair. Few people, as you know, have had a more profound influence on the advancement of feminism than Gloria Steinem, and it really is a source of great distinction and honor for Rutgers and for our state. To be very clear, this chair was created before my time at Rutgers, so I take no credit, but I gladly share in the gratitude we feel toward the more than 400 people and philanthropies whose contributions endowed the Steinem Chair. And I'm all the more humbled by those who have held the chair. First, author and activist Naomi Klein, and now Roxane Gay. I already feel sorry for the next person. We gather to welcome Roxane Gay at a moment, and by the way, my script says Roxanne, and there is no way that my mother, may she rest in peace, would let me get away with on a first name basis. It's just, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready. We gather to welcome Dr. Roxane Gay at a moment of pride and possibility at Rutgers University. This month, Rutgers New Brunswick moved into the top 20 public research universities in the US. Rutgers Camden jumped 22 places in its ranking among national universities. And a point of incredible pride is Rutgers Newark is 7th in the nation for social mobility. That is what this university is about. Meanwhile, we have put in place a diversity strategic plan and a faculty hiring initiative related to it, a climate action plan that sets a goal of carbon neutrality by 2040, and created or expanded financial aid programs to ensure that students from every economic background can thrive at Rutgers. I've characterized Rutgers and it is what attracted me here, as a place that demonstrates the democratic possibilities of this country, where people from all backgrounds, resources, languages, and cultures who merit admission can come here and be transformed by the experience. Learning from someone like Roxane Gay is one of those transformative experiences. Collectively, our three speakers have authored, I write books too, but not as many. They have authored together 31 books. Yeah. 7 by Jamia Wilson, 13 by Roxane Gay, and 11 by Gloria Steinem. This does not include all of the other articles and publications that they've contributed to. The list is far too long. Roxane Gay, she is one of the most admired voices of her generation, and her books are widely read by diverse communities and in college classrooms. Her writing has appeared in venues ranging from the New York Times to McSweeney's to Best American Mystery Stories, and she's author of World of Wakanda for Marvel. You can read her best-selling books, watch her on TV, or check out her podcast, and now you'll be able to say she's part of your family at Rutgers. Gloria Steinem is a writer, lecturer, political activist, and feminist organizer. She is founder of Ms. Magazine, founder of the National Women's Political Caucus, and founder of the Women's Media Center in the United States, among many other pioneering efforts. She has spent decades in traveling in this and other countries as an organizer and lecturer, and is a frequent media spokeswoman on issues of equality. Gloria Steinem is particularly interested in the shared origins of sex and race caste systems, gender roles and child abuse as roots of violence, nonviolent conflict resolution, the cultures of indigenous peoples, and organizing across boundaries for peace and justice. I could list her awards, but she'd be here all day. We'd all be here all day. So let me cut to the chase. For her lifetime of work, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama. Moderating today's conversation is Jamia Wilson, a storyteller, a feminist activist, writer, and a thought leader. Last year, she joined Random House as vice president and executive editor. But yeah. Before that, she served as director of the feminist press at the City University of New York and as vice president of programs at the Women's Media Center. In these and other roles, Jamia Wilson, has become a leading voice on women's rights issues. Her work has appeared everywhere, from the Today Show to Glamour to the BBC to the Washington Post. She's the author of, among other titles, This Book is Feminist, Young, Gifted, and Black, and the introduction and oral history in Together We Rise, behind the scenes at the protest heard around the world. There's much more to say about the collective awesomeness of each of you, but rather than have folks hear it from me, I know they'd rather see it in you. So we are here with thanks for those who supported the creation of the Gloria Steinem Endowed Chair. We're here with thanks for Jamia Wilson, with all of her brilliance that she'll navigate this conversation. We are here to thank and to bear witness to Roxane Gay in all of her glory as she helps guide the next series of conversations at Rutgers University. Hey. Look, the fact is, when you accept the Gloria Steinem Chair, the bar is high. But the beautiful thing is she is going to pass that bar. Ladies and gentlemen, our guests.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and the honor to have a conversation with two humans who have expanded what I believe is possible for each of us in the world. And thank you so much for how you model, how you teach, how you transform, and how you lead with fierce love every day. So I want to just dig right in here and first say, I wish I could press rewind on my life because I want to go to Rutgers now. This is a monumental occasion, and I feel really blessed. I'm Southern, so you have to indulge me, to be able to be a part of this living, historic, present-focused, future-focused moment of transformation by having a chair like this, but also to be able to have this kind of conversation during a pivotal time in our culture and the world. And I want to start out, as we talk about the chairship, asking Gloria about what your first vision was for this. How did you and Rutgers, who you worked so closely with, envisage the focus on this intersection of media, culture, and feminist studies? Why specifically this particular intersection, and why is it so critically important?
The combination was really due to Rutgers, the combination of those three things, but I think that what we all had in mind was making the invisible or the less visible visible. And we all know from our academic experience that that has sometimes been true and sometimes not. We all know from our social, cultural experience of where we live that that has been limited too. But somehow to put these things together allowed us to see, literally see, more than we had in our lives or in our media or in our classrooms, because it's all combined. And this is the way we learn anyway. We don't learn in categories. Hello? You know, we learn by sensory input and by our friends and by everything that's around us. So this created a learning experience that was more, in fact, like life.
I like that, a learning experience that is more, in fact, like life. Thank you. Roxanne.
Jamia.
So could you just share with us a little bit about what drew you to take on this role at Rutgers with the ample amounts of time that you have on your hands as an amazing multi-hyphenate who's doing so many things? What is your vision for the role, and don't hate me for asking this yet, but what plans do you have? What courses are you planning on teaching?
We'll see. This position was incredibly unexpected because I had decided to leave academia simply because I am creating a few television shows and movies and books, and there are only 24 hours in a day, it turns out, even for me. And then a few interesting Black faculty reached out to me and encouraged me to consider the position. And then I interviewed. And the more I learned about the position, the more I thought this might be a really interesting opportunity to do something more than just stand in a classroom and teach, which I love doing. That's the only thing I love about being in academia is teaching. And it's wonderful. The students are always interesting and engaging and audacious. And my favorite thing is, of course, why didn't you do your homework? Talk about storytelling. It's, every day I just look forward to hearing what new stories will come about. And it's a joy. And to now be able to bring that enthusiasm here to Rutgers is really exciting. And there are so many opportunities to also do community-based work. And as a state institution, I think it's really important that we find ways to serve the local community and to make programming available to the local community for free. And so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to do that. Rough sketches. I'm going to be teaching courses in creative writing because that's what I do. This semester I'm teaching writing cultural criticism. And so we're just doing a lot of fun cultural criticism and learning about what it means to articulate an understanding of the culture from different perspectives other than the traditional voice that we consider as the arbiter of taste. And I think next semester I'm teaching writing trauma, and which is a workshop I've been teaching for a few years now. I started at Yale teaching it, and it's a very challenging class, but I think that we have to think about what it means to write about trauma in ways that don't traumatize readers and in ways that honor the experiences of trauma. And each semester I'm going to be doing some sort of deeply focused writing seminar. And I will also be teaching some community writing workshops and bringing in some of my fancy writer friends who will work for less, but will still be compensated fairly to come and help me teach these workshops. And I think also do some panels on ways in which we can advance the feminist project beyond talking about feminism. Feminism as a subject is not inherently interesting, but the ways in which we can create sustainable change are interesting. And so I hope to foster some of those conversations in the community.
It's very exciting. And I'm just wanting to document this moment that I'm saying now, that if you see any manuscripts that you think would be a good fit for me to look at in any of those classes, I'm here to read them.
Oh, I will not have any shame reaching out to you.
So what you had me thinking about too when you were talking about more expansive feminism is that feminism is always in evolution. And that's the thing that has kept me engaged with feminism, that it is always in evolution and we are a part of that. And Roxanne, we're facing a lot of challenges right now in the media, in the culture. Media, they're constantly evolving. They're enormously influential. And what is your thinking about the concept and the implications of civil rights in this moment in relationship to reproductive justice, the fall of Roe v. Wade, marriage equality, trans equality, racial justice? How have things changed as we've been in evolution following these Supreme Court decisions and the landscape we're currently living in?
That's a big question. I mean, that's really three separate questions. Mm-hmm. And, the first is that the media influences a lot of our progress or lack thereof. And we see that all the time. For example, over the past week, the media has been obsessively documenting the Queen's death, even though we know what happened. And I say that without disrespect, but Puerto Rico is without electricity or potable water. And you wouldn't know that if you're not well read. And it's disgraceful. And that's how we get to a place where we are currently having the kinds of conversations we are about trans equality, about women's bodies and people with uteruses and our right to be unlegislated. Because the media picks and chooses what they cover, and it's rarely the most necessary conversations that they're covering. And that's why integrating feminism into a school of communication and information is so important, because the next generation of journalists has to do better. The reality is that we can focus on multiple things at once. We can talk about the death of a monarch while also talking about colonialism. And the reality is that we are still living the effects of colonialism in England, in the Caribbean, in the United States, in every European country, and frankly, almost everywhere around the world. We can also talk about what's going on in Iran with the protests because of the death of a 22-year-old Kurdish woman who was murdered by the morality police, which is a real thing. We can talk about what's happening in Puerto Rico and the fact that Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but you would never know it. We could talk about what's going on in Haiti, where there hasn't been a president for almost 2 years, and there are ongoing protests because there's no food, there's no water, and there's no gas. So I hope that in some small way I can encourage the future journalists of this country to think about what it means to cover the news and what the implications are when it comes to covering the news. And then I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. Because so this conversation about journalism, something popped up for me, and I have a question for you both about journalism next, but it made me think about the moment when the intersection of feminism and media activism became apparent to me. There were two moments. I thought I was going to become a broadcast journalist. That was what my first major was. And I had an older, cis, hetero, white male professor tell me that he wanted me to come into his office to talk to him about something. And I was a grade grubber for the professors who were here. I was that person at that time in my life. My parents were both professors, so I had to deliver the good grades. And so I would always say, oh, is it about some office hours, extra credits I can do? I'm here for you. That's what I thought he wanted to meet with me about. And he said, no, it's that I'm really concerned about you because although you're doing well in my class, I'm worried that you're not going to be able to succeed in this industry with your hair looking like that. I think that you're going to need to get a more polished look, straighten your hair, and you could really succeed being so articulate and with such a young face. You could have a long shelf life in this field.
Well, black don't crack.
Exactly. Nature's reparations is true, but I also felt...
You want to tell us that professor's name?
See, I can't speak ill of the dead.
Okay.
But I will say that I think of his name often because I wrote him a letter when I was working at Women's Media Center to say, although you didn't model for me to get here, you in a way led me to this job that has helped me see what my future is going to be. And for that, I'm grateful. But when you talked about that intersection, it really just led me to believe that, because in that same class, I also heard that women should not try to be assigned to beats to cover things like reproductive justice, because we cannot be objective. So for me, I just personally feel excited about seeing the feminism in evolution, that we have courses now where those intersections are happening at Rutgers, with these brilliant people to making the intersections, not keeping it separate and not making us feel like we have to be separate from who we are to participate in media or to be anything unlike the nature of who we are, to have a voice in media. So that's why I want to ask you more about the journalism piece, both of you together. It has a really complicated role to play, as you both know, and this is a very challenging landscape, and some argue that it's more challenging than ever before. So can you both speak about your experience and your leadership in terms of what it takes to do this work and what can be a hostile climate, I think I would dare to say, some of the time. And also, you spoke about writing trauma and why it's important for us to tell our stories, even if it's sometimes hard.
Well, let's see. I, as the oldest one here, was probably getting the most uninteresting assignments. And they were so uninteresting and so ignorant of women and all of our diversity, or even New York, that I ended up helping to start New York Magazine with a lot of other people, and then Ms. Magazine with a lot of other people. I had no intention of doing that. I just wanted to be a freelance writer. But sometimes you have to begin the whatever it is that's going to publicize what it is you want to do. You end up backing up and backing up and backing up. But it is such a gift, I have to say, to be a writer, because you can follow your curiosity. You can try to make the invisible visible. And of course, I've always been freelance. I've never actually been employed. When you come right down to it, I've never had a job. So I've been more able, since I wasn't on assignment, to follow my own curiosity. And that is a huge, huge, huge gift. And also, you don't need a lot. You just need a pencil. As Louisa May Alcott always said, that's it's the most democratic, because that's all you need. I'm not trying to downplay the value of other professions, but I'm just saying that being a writer, being a journalist, has a lot of advantages.
I definitely agree. Being a writer is something it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do other than to be an emergency room physician, which is pretty different. But I've been writing since I was 4 years old, and I'm not a journalist. I'm not trained in journalism, but I am a cultural critic, and that tends to fall under the purview of journalism. And I think we're at a really critical time, especially when it comes to thinking about how we communicate information to audiences as we contend with the erosion of the importance of truth and facts. And I also think it's time that we really have some serious and nuanced conversations about objectivity, which is often used as a cudgel to not address imbalances in power, to not address the kinds of oppressions that people contend with. If a person with a uterus can't write about reproductive freedom, then what are we doing as a culture? And quite frankly, aren't men pretty biased about it too? It's called child support, and you owe it the minute. So, I think that we have to really question what we mean when we say objectivity, because it doesn't mean impartiality. What it means is, don't make me uncomfortable. Don't make me have to challenge my own privilege. Don't make me question my place in the world. And the more that we can make people uncomfortable and recognize that it can be incredibly productive to be uncomfortable, because that's where real growth and change happens, I think the better off we're all going to be. And I think as a teacher and as a writer, my most important work is encouraging people to get comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah, I love this. And I'm thinking about how Gloria has said many times that the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. And you're both truth tellers. And I think that is, when you were talking about the advantages of journalism, that's the advantage, even though it's not always easy. Seeing people like you also speaking truth, that contagion of the courage inspires others to say, oh, if we keep doing this, we'll get closer to being free, we'll get free. And so I'm really grateful for both of you doing that, speaking truth to power, and then inspiring others of us to continue to do the same and to stretch and grow, as you just told us, in that way. So we've been speaking a bit about the different things that we're facing as humanity right now and as a nation. And crises are often understood as opportunities for us also, on the flip side, to see places where we can create transformation, where we can create positive and radical change. So what are some of the cultural shifts that you're both optimistic about, signs that you're both seeing that might give us advantages, benefits, new ways to live and remake the world?
Well, I think our beginning, at least, to focus on reproductive freedom, reproductive justice, is also very useful in helping us to understand history in a way that usually we have not yet. For instance, if you think about the elevation of various very dictatorial figures like Hitler, for instance, who was actually elected, the first thing that he did the very next day after he was elected was to padlock all the family planning clinics and declare abortion a crime against the state, because he understood that the ability to control the population and which groups, advanced in numbers and which groups did not, was fundamental to power. Well, I didn't learn that until I read a woman historian talking about the rise of Hitler. So I think each of us, each group of us, and each individual of us has something special, unique to bring, so that all of us have a more global view and also a more accurate, minute view of what is going on around us.
I think that there are not a lot of things to be optimistic about, but I have been, especially in the past several months, deeply encouraged by the number of people who have said that overturning Roe v. Wade was a bridge too far. It's good to know that exists for people and that people are pushing back, especially women in conservative states, especially in Kansas. We already saw a very unexpected outcome. And as someone from Nebraska, I never expected Kansas to do that. And I think we're going to see some very interesting results in November and some very unexpected results. And that's encouraging that maybe this is the line. This is where we say enough. We have to take abortion off the table, reproductive freedom off the table once and for all. I don't know how we get there, but I do know that abortion activists, reproductive freedom activists they have been hard at work for decades and are working even harder now. And there are incredible organizations on the ground who are doing grassroots level work. And the fact that they have persevered during truly difficult times is a reminder that no matter how hopeless things get, there are always going to be people who are willing to fight for everyone's right to have freedom and to be able to live in the world as openly and as freely as they choose. So I'm encouraged by that.
Thank you.
And also,
Please.
I think we tend to teach about democracy differently, right? I mean, personally, there are all kinds of ways to start, but personally, I would start by saying, if you don't have decision-making power over your own body, you are not living in a democracy, And that, of course, has been true, that females, and especially women of color, have not been living in a democracy and still aren't in many ways. So it's a question of definition, and the definitions that feed into academia and history and everything, that the way we read the circumstances around us and that came before us.
Thank you so much. When Roxanne mentioned being from Nebraska, one thing that I thought about when we were talking about the signs of hope is that the people you see on the stage were born of Ohio, Nebraska, and the Carolinas.
Ohio.
And when we hear in media, people talk about how people think in those states, I think that they're not thinking of us and the people who we're in community with as well. And that gives me a lot of hope. So I just wanted to speak for that. And I know a whole lot of feminists in New York who are from Texas, for example. And I have a lot of hope for sort of the people who we don't often hear about, but who think like us.
Absolutely. There's a new book out now called How to Read Now by Elaine Castillo, who is a Filipinx writer and scholar. And one of the things she talks about in the book is being an unexpected reader, which is to say that she has never been the expected reader for most texts. And she has found it to be productive to understand herself as an unexpected reader, as the person for whom most books are not intended. And I think that idea expands to thinking about who lives in the Midwest, who makes up the working class, and who are part of the demographics that we often talk about in very sweeping terms as like thinking of the white middle class, when in reality, people of color across all races and ethnicities are part of every single community. And it's so important to recognize that and make sure that we don't ever talk about any group of people as monolithic.
Yes.
And to your point, to recognize that the first generation of babies, who are majority babies of color, has already been born.
Yes.
And this is a cause, there are many, but of the ultra right-wing uprising, because they know that, and they are concerned, to put it mildly, about about the fact that this is no longer going to be a majority white, whatever that means, country. Now, personally, I think, we're going to have more fun, better food, better relationships with other countries, but that is not their view. And that is also a very, very important turning point that you don't see in the media. I, at least, have not seen that.
Yes. And I would say it's also the underpinning of taking away reproductive freedom.
Right.
It's really, not to get all conspiracy theorish, but it's not a conspiracy
No,
theory.
you're absolutely, because, for whatever set of reasons, white women tend to have more abortions, whatever that means, than women of color. Mm-hmm. And, how do I know that? Because the enemy told me that. Right.
So I want to bring, this is amazing too, because we're seeing that, although we are three sitting here, we are in a circle, we're in a community, a circle of people speaking together eye to eye, as I'm envisaging it. And we have questions that were submitted by students and folks who are sitting in the circle with us. So I'm going to bring some of those questions into the conversation too right now. And it's just giving me chills to see how everything that you've both been speaking to, that wisdom's already infused in the things that people are thinking about and wanting to explore. So this question is from a student, and this student is wondering, how can we as students be agents of change and engage with the world in meaningful ways when we're burnt out from the constant news coverage and the lack of progress, especially in terms of legislation, in terms of improving the lives of humans?
Just a little thing like that.
I think that when you're burnt out, it's important to recognize it and to allow yourself to feel that way. As someone who is currently dealing with burnout, don't worry, it's fine. One of the greatest things that has helped is to just admit it. Like, this is what's going on. We are finite creatures. We have a finite amount of energy, and we have a finite amount of hope, unfortunately. And so if you're feeling burnt out, it's okay. But we also have to recognize what a luxury it is. It's a privilege to be able to say, oh, I'm burnt out. And I don't mean that in a way to diminish you or myself. It's to recognize that we can afford to be burnt out because we know that there are other people who aren't burnt out, who are going to continue the necessary work. And so I always encourage students especially to take time for yourself to be students. have fun. It's college, and I assure you it's never going to be this fun again. In some ways.
I co-sign
Now,
that.
I'm having more fun at 47 than I've ever had in my life. It's so great. Trust me, like once you hit 40, it's like, woo. But
and once you hit 80.
But for many of you, this is going to be the one unfettered time in your life. Not completely unfettered. You have families, jobs. Some of you may have children, but you are here to learn. And so take advantage of this incredible learning community that you're a part of. And then don't overextend yourself and think that you have to be part of every organization and part of every movement. If you do one good thing, it can be enough. Because there's only one of you, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of students at this institution. Many hands do make light work. And so just keep being yourself and rest. Rest is so restorative and so necessary. And we don't talk enough about rest as a feminist activity, but it is. Like, take a load off. It's okay.
Yes, and this next question is also a big one, and I love it. The question is, what do you think is the critical work of the public university in today's society? Roxanne spoke a bit about that in terms of the ways that your classes will be addressing that question, but I'd love to hear you both speak a bit more about it.
Well, having gone to a very not public university, Smith College, I would say it's access. I mean, as much as my college tried, with scholarships and outreach and women from different countries and all of that, it was not a public university. So it's so precious to be a part of everyday people's aspirations, which I think is probably unique to public universities like this one.
I think that public universities are complex beasts, and there are many wonderful things about them, and there are many challenging things about them. But the best that public universities offer is that there are communities who believe in the greater good, and that an educated populace is an empowered populace who come together and decide we are going to value education, we are going to value collaboration, and we're going to value innovation. And I'm not just talking about like whatever's going on in engineering, but really the kinds of innovations that made this program possible, the kinds of innovations that create institutes that really address the social problems that we're currently living with and anticipating what is coming next. These kinds of things happen everywhere, but at public universities, they are incredibly hard fought, they are incredibly well valued, and I think they are absolutely critical to the future of our country. So a lot of truly necessary work is happening at public universities, and they are doing so as legislatures continue to strip them bare and take away all of the necessary resources they have to do that work. Here it seems to be a little better than in many other places, for which I'm grateful, but it's also important to talk about that.
So I found this question especially delicious, so I'm excited to ask it, which is, at what point in your lives did you realize that being a bad feminist, thank you for coining that, Roxanne, was the feminist you wanted to be in society?
You coined it. I think you should.
But I was going to say, you have a bad feminist too, because I always think about that we could be the men that we were told to marry as a bad feminist statement also.
Yes, I did say that. We are becoming the men we wanted to marry. Yes, I'm not sure what that means, but right.
You know, I think I decided early, I have to stop saying I think. It's the number one thing I tell my students to not say. Don't write I think, because you're going to tell me what you're thinking. What was I saying? Bad feminist. I knew early on in my feminist evolution that I wanted to be a bad feminist. And, you know, a lot of people have really taken the phrase and misinterpreted it as a carte blanche to do whatever. And that's not what bad feminism is. Partly it was tongue in cheek, like, ha ha, I think men should take out the garbage. I'm a bad feminist. And I do believe that, like, with all of my heart. I do. It's just man work. And I don't make the rules. But I was also thinking about the history of feminism. And I spend a lot of time thinking about women's suffrage and how it wasn't until 1965 that all women were empowered with the right to vote. And that's just one issue. And I always look at who's left behind by mainstream feminism. And we continue to get better, and we continue to examine the intersections of our identities far more than we ever have. But I know that any feminism that will leave any one of us behind, whether we're talking about women of color, queer women, women with disabilities, trans women who are women, you know, that is not something I want to be a part of. And if that is good feminism, then I am absolutely going to embrace bad feminism. And the idea that unless we are all free, none of us are free, no matter how free we might feel in our individual lives. So it's been for a very long time, and I'm going to continue to espouse both sides of that bad feminism idea, that it's okay to be human and to be flawed and to be inconsistent and understand who should take the trash out. And as someone married to a woman, we just have a man come over and do it for us. But I also understand that now more than ever, as women, as people with uteruses, we have to stick together. We have to work together despite the differences among us, maybe because of the differences among us, and that doing so will get us further. So,
and I think also it's helpful to think about vertical history, not just horizontal history, because what we call Native American cultures, the folks who were here before Europeans showed up, you know, were often way more egalitarian than, and we actually don't even study them as part of history in a routine way, and yet there would be so much to learn. I mean, if I hadn't happened in my life to meet Wilma Mankiller, who's the chief of the Cherokee Nation, I would not know, you know, that the quote-unquote chief, it wasn't called a chief, might be a man, but he was chosen by the grandmothers. I mean, that, you know, it was a system of balance that was here before. So, you know, we can think of expanding our textbooks and our courses, not only this way, but this way, you know, vertically as well.
I liked thinking about the vertical. And also I like that that's also about changing your perception, changing your perspective, and, you know, reminding ourselves to have a long view. So I'm gonna go back to one of my questions because I can't help but wanna know, having you both here, what are you both reading that you would like to share with all of us and to inspire us to read and tell us why in this moment that we've been talking about? What are the books that are infusing you with inspiration, hope, a new vision, a new perspective?
You know, I feel terrible about saying this, but I'm reading my email. I mean, I have to be honest about it. I mean, you know, I open books for reference and to get quotes and to get statistics and so on. I mean, I need help, obviously. So I want to know all the books I should be reading.
The book I mentioned earlier, How to Read Now by Elaine Castillo, I don't look to books for hope. I don't think about hope too much, but I do look to books for knowledge, for challenging myself to go beyond my easy assumptions and just to change my perspectives and grow as a thinker. I think that it's my responsibility to do so. I can't keep writing the same thing over and over, nor should anyone. And so that book is really blowing my mind. I have a book club, and it's this month's selection. That's not why I'm sharing it. It's just the book has really gotten under my skin in some really useful ways. And God, what's the other book I'm reading right now? I read on the Kindle, so it's like I can't even tell you, like, oh, let me try and imagine the cover. I don't know what the cover looks like. I have been reading a lot of Alexander Chee, and he had a really great book come out about 3 years ago called How to Write an Autobiographical Memoir. And How to Write an Autobiographical Essay. And it's an essay collection about writing about the self and doing that sort of excavation, but also looking outward. And he's an incredible writer and thinker. So I highly recommend that. And now I have many new colleagues here at Rutgers. And so I'm actually looking forward to getting into some of their work. And I will report back.
And I'm going to send you some books, Gloria, for when you have some time and want to get away from some email. I've got you.
Well, I will say this is not a brag, but it's a brag. I've been to her house. She has a lot of books, and they're organized by category, like a bookstore. It's incredible, and they're actually read.
Not by me.
So, last thing I want to ask, I can't believe how quickly this has gone by, but you're both brilliant, and
we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for nourishing us. We've talked a lot today about growth. That's one of the themes that keeps coming back to me, and I was just wondering if we could close by asking you each, what is one growth opportunity you would challenge each of us who's listening today to participate in this moment at the intersection of feminist studies, media, and culture? What's one challenge you'd like to issue to us to do?
Well, there's so many answers to that. It's hard, but I would say that I get too obsessed with deadlines and what I should be doing, and I forget to live in the moment. So every once in a while, I think, okay, I'm going to leave my door, and whatever happens or whoever shows up, I'm going to try to see what our exchange might be, right? So in that way, I left my door on East 73rd Street, and I discovered that my mailman, who was the first person I saw, was the political boss of Queens. And he has been a political advisor ever since, So it's fun just to take a chance, it's like talking in an elevator, if you know what I mean, when everybody is quiet, and just take a chance on saying something. This I got, oh God, I shouldn't say that. But anyway, I got from my father, who, when I was a child, used to turn to me in quiet elevators and say, "So I told the man to keep his $50,000. That was just. But not only to plan, but to remember the next second, the next minute, which is all we're assured of.
I would say two things. One, it's so important to read international news. I can't stress that enough. And this is something I've been encouraging myself to do lately, because I realized that I had a very American-centric understanding of feminist progress, and I felt a little ashamed about that, as I should. And so I've started to read international publications, and it's incredibly useful to be reminded of how big both how big and how small the world is, and how much we have in common and how different things can be. And secondly, one of the main things I'm asked is, how do we reach, for example, Republicans? And I'm not talking about like ye old Republicans. I'm talking about today's Republicans. And how do we reach people who are transphobic and who don't think I should live, et cetera? And I encourage every one of you to unburden yourself with thinking that you can reach the unreachable. I don't think that there are any productive conversations to be had with people who don't think we should be alive, who don't think we should marry who we want, who don't think that we should have access to equitable health care, who don't think that we should allow our children to participate in sports if they are trans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, these are not people who are interested in conversation or having their minds changed. There are plenty of people we can reach, and they're the people who are disaffected, who are apathetic, who have disengaged from sociopolitical culture for one reason or another. And so think about that as the source of your place to create change instead of trying to reach the unreachable. Like, let them sort of die out on their sad little island without seasoning. It's true, they don't season their food, and that's why they're so unhappy. So yeah, just really think about how you spend your energy trying to create change. Don't give up, but think about where you're spending your energy. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, stop.
Thank you so very much to Roxane Gay, Gloria Steinem, Jamia Wilson, for such an informative and inspiring conversation. I don't know how you can make such important topic be enjoyable in addition to everything else. Thank you so much, and thank you for the audience for joining us. Lucky for us, we're going to continue this conversation for the next 3 years. So thank you, everybody.